Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome once again from the Critical Blast Caverns. I am your host, RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor and author of the Destroyer series. Right now, obviously, I didn't create it. That was Warren Murphy and Richard Sapir a long time ago. I'm just there now. Happy to be there. We're talking books tonight, and we're not having to crowdfund anything, so we can kind of relax. You can put your wallets away until after the show, then go to Amazon because we're going to point you out to some things. We are talking tonight with author Declan Finn. Well, we were, but he's not there. There he is. For some reason, the screen was black. Declan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing as well as anybody can be in New York City, especially during not Thanksgiving or whatever they're calling it the season right now.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, if you buy a turkey, you're going to have it weighed on the way out of the store and have to register your address. If this bird is large enough to serve 12 people, we need to know where you're at.
Don't worry. If the turkey is large enough, they'll count it as another person in occupancy against you.
Absolutely. So,
it's bad enough we have a turkey in the mayor's office and the governor.
I wore the completely wrong shirt tonight. I should have put on. I have a shirt. I have a shirt with this logo on it. Which, by the way, is available in our T-shirt store down in the description below. First plug of the night. We're not even a minute. 3 minutes into the show. So how long have you been writing, Declan?
Well, I've been writing on and off since I've been writing constantly since I was 16 years old. I started with fan fiction, although I didn't know it was fan fiction at the time. I didn't even know there was a name for it. And two, then that kind of spiraled into something completely different. It's like after the first, 4,000? I forget how many thousands of words it was, but after 2,000 single-spaced, 8.5 by 11 pages, it's, wow, this looks nothing like the TV show I based it on. Let's start this again and let's see what I can do to make it not the TV show I started with. And it spiraled from there. It's basically taken over my entire school as a historian, where it's, quick, let's just say I wound up getting an entire 5-book trilogy. Yes, you heard that right. Don't worry, I have no intentions of being Frank Herbert when I grow up, but I got a 5-book trilogy out of it. One trilogy, short story anthology, followed by an entire book of, hi, this is the footnotes and all of the graduate papers I based this book off of to make a thriller.
Poetry?
So,
if you set the 5th book to poetry, then that's fine. You can get away with it. If you set the 5th book to poetry, then that's fine. You can get away with that. There's precedent set.
Not yet.
I've got you beat on the when I started the business. Where's it at? Oh. Well, I hate making claims that I can't back up now, and somebody's been sleeping in my shelves. Here we go. 8th grade. We had my 8th grade teacher was also our school principal, and he had us write a composition every Friday. It had to be turned in every Friday. So rather than do what everyone else in class was doing, which was running to the encyclopedias, finding a subject and copying 5 paragraphs out of there by hand, I said, I can't finish something in one paper. I'm going to turn each one into a chapter. And you want to know what else is coming? Wait till next Friday. I just kept going with that. So that was fun. That's how I got started.
The revenge of the serial format worked for me.
Yes. Yeah, it was 81, 1981, I was doing that. So eventually, though, your fan fiction honed your skills and your craft, and you were able to turn that into your own character. I think we got a bit of lag going on.
And that isn't even the book we're talking about tonight. That's probably just our luck, right?
Yep. So the book we're talking about tonight is, and I will go ahead and share a screen.
No, heck, actually.
There we go. There we go. That looks nice.
Well, it certainly looks better than me holding the book next to my head all evening.
So this is the first book in the series, right?
Yep. It's actually a concept I came up at college in a religion class of all things. Somebody was going over the quote unquote where you've probably heard of you may have heard of saints who have levitated. I had never heard of a saint who could smell evil until that class, and I just thought this would be great, smelling evil. This would be a great superpower for a cop. You just put them all into one person. You give, and about 16 years later, when my publisher or a new idea to run with a series, I gave him 3. That was 1. And okay, so you have a cop with all the superpowers of a saint. So of course you have to put him up against a possessed serial killer, and that was book 1.
Now, first of all, I've got to ask, what does evil smell like?
Well, I have never actually it smelling like, I pretty much described it as smelling worse than a month-long floater coming out of the Hudson during the. I figured that would probably catch it.
We're breaking up a little bit, Declan. The audio is just kind of doing the robot. Okay. You know what I'm reminded of, and no, I'm not saying it reminds me of because it's an exact copy. I'm saying it's reminding me of it because there's a similarity going on. Do you remember the comic book Nightman?
What company was it? I don't know it offhand.
That was Malibu. Malibu had Nightman. And Nightman's superpower was that he could
totally.
He could hear evil thoughts in people.
So he knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. I think I've heard that somewhere before.
Somewhere before, yeah. And I remember the discussion that my friends and I got into was, if he hears evil thoughts, well, who's to say that the thought is evil? What's the objective measurement that it's going against? Because maybe you're passing some Muslim guy on the street that says, "Oh, I'm so hungry, I'm going to have bacon when I get home tonight." To some people that would be evil, and to others it would not.
True. Well, in the context of the hero, that it would have to be malicious intent, which, if I'm going to rattle on about theology for you, I can, but I'd rather not. Where malicious intent or with knowledgeable intent is even built into the system of sin, which is the mythology I'm working within. For those of you who might actually also be Catholic, I am using mythology as in story, yes, just to be clear.
Yeah, much the same way my classic literature teacher said, we're studying creation myths, and when we get to Genesis, I'm using mythology in the greater sense, not in the sense that I'm putting any religion down.
Understood. Good.
So Tommy is he's a gun-toting saint.
Well, he is a New York City police detective. He's considered weird because, IA takes a look at him and goes, dude, cop at your rank, and you don't have any complaints filed against you. If you're not getting complaints filed against you, usually it's a sign that you're not doing your job. So I else's vices, Not to mention, I enjoy driving him insane whenever somebody says, "Oh, no, I am not a saint. Saints are dead." It's a running gag.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a saint anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I could scroll through here, but this would be a text wall if I were to scroll through here, and we're not going to do a live reading. But I do like this image. Where did you? How'd you get the covers put together here?
Steve, I want to say his name is Steve Bolio. That's totally botched. Oh, and let's see if I can spell this up. Beauli Bolio. That's the best I can come up with. But no. All he's doing is he's using stock art. Granted, it's to great effect. Funny anecdote. When I first started, I self-published. One of my novels was called A Pious Man. That was the history one of the history ones I made fun of. And like I said, stock art.
Yep, it'll work.
So it was a complete coincidence. But you know what? I honestly think I prefer it better here. The flames add ambiance.
Yeah, I've gone through. We're a publishing house here too, and I work on the cheap as much as I can. So I've gone to different art houses and said, people say, hey, we're doing cover art for $100. We'll do your cover with unlimited revisions. I'm like, okay, let me test your unlimitedness. And I only had to have him do it 3 times because the thickness of the book kept changing. I was like, the art was, I figured that was the hard part. I'm like, just keep changing the width of the spine, guys, and the level. But when we did this one here, I thought they did a bang up job for $100. So much so that when we do the second anthology, The Devil You Know Better, I'm going to have them say, just keep that same picture you guys got there now, and just do that while he's holding it up, and that'll be our book 2 volume. And that way I can keep the same cover artist the way that you've been working with the same cover artist, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. And in your case, if you just have him flash the 2, does that count as a revision, or do you have to?
No, that's going to be a whole new cover. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. Can I flesh another cover out of it? No, I won't do that to them. They treated me right. They threw in all the bookmarks and the and the banner for the website. So I'm like, okay, I'll pay you guys fee. You did fine. So seven books in the St. Tommy series. How long did that take to crank out? Is that 7 years, or it's like a year per book, or 2 years per book, 6 months per book?
Year and a half. No, year and a half total.
Oh, year and a half total. So like a month and a half per book then. So you just write them all out at one time and then start chunking them up?
No. I'm writing them as I go. Some actually, the longer process is the editing, because sometimes you have to hold a gun to the beta readers' heads. Metaphorically, not literally. Nobody called the cops yet. And then there's the editing process. Actually, one of the longer parts of. So, yeah, and it's been coming along at a fairly good pace.
But
publisher that, well, yeah, this is the first publisher where they say, "Hi, we would like an outline first."
Yep, that's where I'm at. Like, just take the book, read the book. It's all in there. So is 7 the last book in the St. Tommy series, or are you going to keep doing more of them?
Number 7 is the most. 8 should be coming out hopefully before the month is out, if not the year. Lockdowns basically screwed with everybody's schedule, including the publisher. Book 8. So book 8 is coming out. The publisher already has book 9 and 10. I still have books 11 written, and I'm in the process of writing book 12.
You keeping busy. Yeah. My friend David Peterson, who's a writer, he's got
it's the job.
Yeah, his favorite expression is write drunk, edit sober. So just crank it out, and then the hard work is, once you've written it, fixing it into something readable. Have you ever considered with something this?
In my case,
keep going.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's this lag killing it.
In my case, it is mostly a matter of, try not to write until 2 a.m, where it's like the next day. All right, what did I try to mean? What did I mean to say when I wrote this sentence? I have no idea. So, since I don't drink, it's usually the tired that kills me, and it's edit awake, which would be a heck of a lot easier with, again, the sentence made any sense, but I'm not as young as I used to be, which I know sounds stupid, but I used to go on 36-hour writing binges, and it's like, yes, well, I just wrote 40 pages. It's like, yeah, I can't do that anymore. I have to settle for 20 in a 9-to-5 day, which I'm told is supposed to be impressive, but it's like, guys, you sit down, you write. I don't know what's impressive.
It's hard. It's my goal is always 1,000 words a day. If I can do 1,000 words, then I've met the goal. If I'm still awake and I've still got stuff, keep going. But when people ask me how to do it, I'm like, just sit down, don't get up until 1,000 words are done, and then get up, and it doesn't matter if they're good or not. They'll start getting good. You just have to keep at it.
Oh yeah.
Now I say that, and I've seen people self-publish books.
One of the advantages. Sorry, please repeat that last part.
I said I tell people that, and then I've seen people self-publish books where I sit down and I read them. I'm like, okay, obviously the advice is not working for you, because we got several thousand words here, and they're not getting any better.
Ouch. Yeah, but hey, let's just say I'm glad I currently have an editor who can, 1, keep up with me, and 2, that I have an editor, period, because my process used to be, write the book, put it aside for 6 months, come back later, and try not to spike the entire thing, because it's like, what space alien wrote this crap? Was I on drugs? I don't think so. I don't smoke. I hate needles and I hate pills. The hell. So thankfully, I got an editor. Hell, technically, I've got 2 or 3 editors, depending on how you want to count them, who, do all that worrying for me.
I very rarely reread my own stuff, because on the few occasions I've done it, I've gone into the middle of a book and just kind of like scoured down the page. I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Why did they rewrite it like this? And then I'll go back to my original manuscript. I'm like, oh, that was me. So I can't blame the editor.
Perfectly
for that
one. True. Yes.
So with a book series this long,
as much as you'd like to.
Yes, as much as I'd like to blame him. With a series this large, have you considered other media to take him to, now that you've got a platform to build this on? I mean, have you considered adapting the graphic novels, taking it to Netflix, that kind of thing?
Well, Netflix has always been in the back of my head, since they will apparently greenlight anything. And I'm not even sure that's an exaggeration. I've never heard of anyone being rejected from Netflix. And I have had people suggest graphic novels, but have you looked at the prices on artists for graphic novels? It's
that's
a nice spare bit of cash. Yeah. Well, right now we're working on just getting the audiobook out, which should, now you figure that'd be relatively easy, except the fellow we have to do the audiobook, he is an awesome author named John Mollison, Jon Mollison. He's got some great stuff. And he was reading the audiobook for Hellspawn, and he was going to do it for the rest of the series. Then he had dental surgery. So that put a little bit of a stopgap in the plan. So I'm hoping to take it one thing at a time. If I'm trying to imagine what Netflix would do to it, but that's where I should probably just take the policy of my approach to Hollywood, being familiar with how Hollywood has mutilated most book adaptations. My thought on the process has always been, okay, here are the books, you give me the cash, and if you want me to say nothing about what you have done to the series, you'll pay me a little bit more cash, and I will go away.
Yes. That's like when Alan Moore was asked about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and they said, what do you think of it? He's like, well, what do you want me to think of it? I mean, they came to me and said, we want to make a movie with the same title as your book, and here's a bucket of money. So beyond that, I didn't think about it at all. But I will say that, if you're worried about Netflix, there is another streaming service out there that is doing things. Have you heard of PureFlix?
Yes, Kevin Sorbo's company. I've actually pinged them once or twice. I've yet to hear back. I'll probably do another formal approach. That way they can give me a formal rejection. But yeah, that would probably, Kevin Sorbo would probably be best. I hear Antonio Sabato Jr. is doing his own company. Heck, I would even try Nick Searcy, the director of the film Gosnell, if he felt like doing an action piece this time.
Yeah, I mean, PureFlix, I know David A.R. White is he's probably the owner of the whole thing, he and his wife. And they just did a recent movie called Beckman, which starred David A.R. White in the lead role. He usually plays pastors and priests and all that stuff in things like God's Not Dead and such. He was a hitman in this one. And he was a hitman who gave up the hitman life, sought refuge in a church, took over the pastorship of the church, took in a runaway. The runaway's taken away, and he has to become a hitman again to go after the people who took the runaway. And it was very interesting. It's like, he's carrying this gun and he's not afraid to shoot the guys down. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe they are open to things that are a little bit more edgy than just the typical Hallmark movie kind of thing.
Which is good news for especially from my point of view. I have a few shootouts here.
Yeah. They had more than a few shootouts. Now, of course, you never saw anybody get hit. It was always, like, oh, I'm hit, and then down, just like the old Gunsmoke episodes or something. But it was there. There was a lot of debris flying about.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, even in my books, I try not to be excessively gory, even though, let's just put it this way. I took all my research on demonology, and I was a weird teenager. I took all my research of serial killers from when I was interested in them back in high school, and I slammed them together. And the result was fairly gruesome, and I did not actually describe the corpse until I got to the ME's office, and I made it the most absolutely clinical description of a disarticulated and dismembered corpse I could come up with. So yeah, yes, they're perfect for each other.
Well, that was the best way to do it, was through the dialogue of the ME. That's a genius way to do it. It's much better than a wall of text and narrative that's saying, and the leg was in the ditch and the head was hanging from the ceiling fan. Let the ME get it all out, because then it's, dialogue, and it's more engaging.
And it turns off fewer people. There are actually some people going, wow, this is excessively gruesome. What is this, Hellraiser? And then they got to, let's just say, the punchline of the murder method. And it's like, oh, that explains it. And we went off from there.
Now, when he's going after a serial killer, a demon-possessed serial killer, who's the killer? Is it the demon, or is it the human who then got a demon? Was he a serial killer before he was possessed, I guess, would be my first question.
He was a serial killer before he was possessed. One of the things... Oh, yes. If you read the novel, The Exorcist, as opposed to the movie, William Peter Blatty was very good in going step by step, not only with, well, in order to be possessed by a demon, you have to be open to this sort of thing. And the kid involved was dealing with Ouija boards. And as I have written in more than one novel, do not play with occult crap. Occult crap will not play with you. And, he also got the medicine right for the time. So it was a great blow by blow, and I do recommend it. In my case, I was
here in St. Louis because this is where it happened. We've actually had people go into the house in Soulard for like Halloween shows and do broadcasts from there. And nothing happens in there anymore. Well, I won't say nothing, because something did happen during the show that freaked the host out, and I've spoken with him before, and I know he was being very sincere and honest about it when he told about it. But yeah, it's a weird house. There's stuff still kind of hanging around, I guess. It's not haunted, but it's got memories.
Normally the Catholic Church refers to that as demonic infestation, and it's called the priest. Or at least you got to make sure to call the exorcist. I have to be specific because it is a specific job. Even though there are a lot of bishops on the planet who will not actually assign an exorcist, because, wait for it, bishops do not believe in possession.
Of course not. So it's like, did you read the job title before you took it?
That's another rant, but oy.
Yeah, it's I mean, it only makes sense that there's good, then there's evil. And if you don't believe in the war in heaven and Jesus casting demons into swine and all that stuff, then you should go become a barber or something, not a priest.
No kidding. It's like, Hi, this is called the supernatural. You know what you do every Sunday? Turning, bread and wine into body and blood. This is called the supernatural. If you think this is just a memorial service, there are other denominations for that.
So obviously, I'm guessing Tommy is very Catholic.
He's not if you ask him. If you ask him, it's like, I go to church 60 days a year, 52 Sundays, and 8 days of holy 8 days of holy obligation. 8 holy days of obligation. I go, 60 days a year. I don't go every day. And, every time somebody goes, but Tommy, what about? It's like, so what? I put somebody up in a spare room. This is supposed to nominate me for sainthood. It's like, but you watch over all these little old ladies while they're doing their prayer thing. It's like, I'm a cop. This is called community policing. It's kind of part of my job. I'm not getting paid for it, but whatever. And so, like I said, if you ask him, he's a bare bones, basic, stupid Catholic. You ask everyone else around him, he's super Catholic.
He's the saint, just not Simon Templar.
Sorry.
Vincent Price playing him on the radio. I love listening to that on Sirius XM. Yeah, Vincent Price was the original saint.
Okay, for some reason, I had never heard of the Saint radio shows. I had always, I knew of George Saunders playing him in the black and white movies. And hell, I even remember Roger Moore doing the TV show, which, if anybody has to watch The Saint, watch George Saunders, watch Roger Moore, please, for the love of God. Do not watch Val Kilmer.
No, don't. That was a horrible movie. But yes, there were radio dramas of the Saint. And, if you've got Sirius XM, you can find that on the Radio Classics channel every weekend. And it was Vincent Price. So it's very interesting hearing Vincent Price play the role of this jovial kind of detective here who's like, we've got you tied to the chair. He's like, oh, don't tell my sainted mother that I'm all tied up here. He's just, it's interesting. I'll just say that. So my question was going to be, obviously, Tommy works for the police department. He doesn't work for the church in any official capacity, given his abilities, and I'm assuming their knowledge of them.
Well, with book 1, we start with his first ability, where he doesn't even know what's going on just yet. And he's trying to figure out what's going on, especially when he's chasing a perp while he was in the middle of his morning prayers in his head. And then he has very strange double vision where he's ahead of the perp and still running after the perp and can see himself running after the perp and standing in front of him. He tries to he focuses on grabbing the perp, and he bilocates into clotheslining the perp as he's running away with the purse. And from the entire first book is him trying to figure out, 1, what's happening to him, 2, how does he put this guy away without God knows what happening, literally. And his relationship with the church would change over time. He does not. The only person who knows is his confessor and anybody who has personally witnessed what has happened to him, because he's, there's a line in the gospel that always stuck with me, and it winds up sticking with Tommy, where it's, do not go and pray on the street corner. You'll get all the nice pats on the head. You'll be rewarded in this world. Go pray in a closet. Yep. And Tommy's response to, wait, I have the powers of a wonder worker or a thaumaturge, if you're going to be snobby about it. Okay. The only person I'm telling is my priest. And the only people who find out along the way are those people who have personally witnessed it. And sometimes even they're going, obviously, This healing wasn't miraculous. This wound was just it looked worse than it was. Or wait, he's on 2 different security cameras at 2 different timestamps. Somebody call IT. We need to fix the timestamps on the cameras. Obviously, they're broken. Things like that.
So he hadn't had to deal with a devil's advocate, and I say that in the official sense of the term, who's come down to say, okay, reports are that you can do this. Let's see it.
Yeah, no, they're none of those in Hellspawn, and let's just say that given the nature of what has come after him, it's, you know what, I'm not interested in being a trained SEAL, and frankly, most of the powers and abilities he's gotten have been for emergency uses only from his point of view. He's one of those people who's going, I don't want to over ask, which have led to some humorous bits of people smacking him up the head and going, you can ask. God can say no if he likes. So
always
need it. Exactly.
He always makes prayer. It's often no, but now, have you gotten anywhere close to giving a reason why Tommy is favored with this?
In book 5, which is Crusader, or I actually have normally, there are people who have normally the saints who have always experienced these phenomena, the charisms. Usually the visitation comes first, so as to not scare the bejesus out of the person this is happening to. And in Tommy's case, okay, to be perfectly honest, I didn't know the visitations came first at the time. My wife, who is in some cases a better Catholic than I am, mentioned that around book 4. It's like, you've been reading these in draft form since book 1. You might have mentioned that.
Well, that doesn't mean that he didn't have a visitation that he didn't recognize as one. Therefore, the reader would not have recognized it as one.
Yeah, but I didn't have the ability to retcon that far. So what I did was I just put the visitations in book 5, and I definitely spelled it out entirely in book 6, which I very subtly called Deus Vult.
Yes, very, very subtle. So, see, he's had the visitation then, so he knows why he has these abilities. I mean, he's favored for a reason.
Yes, by book 6, he is informed.
Okay, and then once, of course, you become this kind of wonder worker kind of person, you're usually not long. Historically, you're not long for this world after that. So
that would be telling.
Well, you've already told me you've got 11 books in the hopper, so he's around for a while yet.
Well, considering the title of the series, well, actually, you know what happens to him at the end? In the middle of book 1. So it's spelled out. Because the first line of the first book is, I am a saint.
Well, there you go. So is St. Tommy the only series you're working on, or do you have some other books that you play with as side projects?
Well, I've got the thing that used to be fan fiction 20 some odd years ago, is now a space opera that's going to be through Silver Empire, at least at the moment. They haven't told me otherwise. So that's been outlined to like 13 books. The first 3 are already drafted and sent in, but they want to finish off St. Tommy first, in part because, series sell better. Who knew? I'm also working on at least in my head, I'm working on a spin-off series for a vampire quartet called Love at First Bite. It's paranormal romance or vampire romance. If except I throw in Vatican ninjas, RPGs, and oh, by the way, the entire cemetery is rising with undead. How big's the cemetery? Well, it's Queens. Half
Oh,
of Queens is cemetery.
that's a lot of newly living people.
Yes, no kidding. And I have some fun with metaphysics because I was the nerd who double majored in college. It's like philosophy's fun, so is history. It's like so. I wound up using Catholic metaphysics to apply to vampires because I wanted my Dracula back and I wanted some free will in there, so I hammered out my own way.
So
That
for your vampires monsters.
Oh, my vampires are seriously freaking monsters, and the few who are not are the ones who go to confession and quote, "Yes, it hurts a lot." Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Oh, I had a vampire story where he's telling his he's doing his little interview thing. He's like, "Yeah, wooden stake through the heart, that'll kill you. Wouldn't do much for you either, would it?"
Usually not. And in this particular case, one of my vampires, the one who goes to confession, also goes to evening mass to make sure to get the daily dose of blood from the chalice.
Ah, okay. So now that would be an interesting metaphysical supernatural collision. Because if you do want to believe that, and I can't, I'm losing the big long word here.
Transubstantiation.
That's the word, transubstantiation. What happens if a vampire takes communion and is literally imbibing the blood of Christ? And I think you're probably pulling off something from the shelf where this happens now.
Book one.
Okay.
Cover is really dark in this one. Okay, there it is.
Here, let me just honor at stake. So he's a vampire who has had communion.
Well, yes, I have a vampire who has communion, goes to church, goes to confession, and since as I said, I'm a historian by training. That's where I got the graduate degree in for the different book series. I decided, okay, I'm going to do the biography of a vampire, and how far back can I go? And
so if you've got a vampire who's of faith, and the symbolism of faith is not a deterrent to him. You've got to sort of play with the vampire mythos and say, yeah, that really works, and no, that's just hogwash.
Well, I thought I was stealing from a role-playing game called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where it's a little bit of Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics. The more evil you do, the more evil you are. The more good you do, the more good you are. And they're all a series of habits. And, the more actions you take, the more you evolve and become. In this case, I explained it as an imperfect resurrection. Thomas Aquinas said that a resurrected body would be perfectly entwined with the soul. And in this case, yes, vampires are perfectly entwined with the soul. So if you go evil, it's going to end up looking like the picture of Dorian Gray. And you have bad reactions to crosses. If you're a good little vampire and you go to confession as often as possible without bursting into flames, then yes, you can go near crosses and such. Everybody, there are some universals. Everybody gets sunburn. I think everybody's allergic to silver, if I recall correctly, from my own mythology. It's been a while. There are things like that. Oh, look, when you set somebody on fire, they go up in flames. Who knew?
It happens
And
to just about everybody.
yeah, when I first published it, Honor at Stake has a very odd publication history. It started with a publisher. The publisher is gone. I wound up self-publishing, and now I have a new publisher with Silver Empire. But the original tagline, and for the record, I gave the first publisher a choice of 4 different taglines. The one they chose was, of course, my favorite. Welcome to New York City, where vampires do not sparkle, they burn.
Ah, yes. No sparkly. If your vampiric effect can be achieved by going to Bed Bath & Beyond, you're not a vampire, you're a male prostitute.
But enough about Robert Pattinson's dating life.
Yes. So that's a very interesting take on vampires, though, because they're still immortal. So you have you can take long swings toward one side of the moral compass and then take your time getting back to the other side of the moral compass if you plan on being careful. It's like, you know what? I want to be a debaucherous little slime bag for a few hundred years, and then I'll come back and start, helping the poor and, defending the downtrodden, and work my way back.
Well, that's good as long as, one, the quote-unquote debauchery doesn't mean murder sprees. I hear that's a nasty habit to develop. And 2, it's like, if that's your plan, you better bloody well hope you don't get a sunburn by accident in the meantime.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd have to be very, very careful, and evil people have to be careful.
Usually the case. And with the vampire series, I basically went all out. It's like, okay, I'm going to put a werewolf into a spec ops unit hunting Taliban vampires, things like that. At some point along the line, it's, everything was happening in Brooklyn. So I've got street gangs versus vampires on one hand, the mob trying to figure out what's going on the other. And that's before I get into, internal vampire politics, which I try not to make look like, an Anne Rice novel or something. Although I am told by people who have played it that some elements I'm using look like Vampire the Masquerade, which all I could think is, damn it, can't I come up with anything that somebody else hasn't already?
You know what? The vampire basics are the best. Go with Max Schreck's Nosferatu and start from there, and just accept it. I haven't seen a vampire yet have a problem going over a body of running water. So there's an old school trope that nobody's messing with, because it really confines your vampires traveling.
No kidding. I've only seen it used once in one Christopher Lee Dracula, and it was his second one, where that was the one where he said, well, if I'm coming back, I am going to only hiss. I am not going to lower myself to using any of your execrable dialogue. I think that's a direct quote. I hope I'm paraphrasing accurately. But that one ended with Dracula on a frozen river bed, and they shot the ice out from under him, and he just went in. It's like, end of movie.
Okay, we'll just drown him, or at least floating somewhere further downstream, somebody else's problem. Yeah. Now, mixing. Once you've acknowledged that a supernatural thing exists, like a vampire, it suddenly explodes into, and we've seen this in the True Blood series, and in the Mortal Instruments series. As soon as one supernatural being is confirmed to exist, the rest of them, by default, also exist. As soon as there are vampires, yes, of course there are werewolves. Yes, of course there are fairies. It's like, you can't have. They're like supernatural potato chips. You can't have just one.
Yeah, more or less. And you know, the only reason I haven't had more interaction among my various series is it was suggested to me that I should stick to one intellectual property at a time. I've left enough breadcrumbs in Saint Tommy for long-term readers to go, I get that reference.
Are there breadcrumbs in St. Tommy that lead into Honor at Stake?
There are a few. I make reference to, I don't know why, but this church had me do some training with some really cranky Swiss guards with a lot of fancy toys, a vampire who goes to confession, and a sociopath with a medical degree. So,
Excellent. As much as it would cost to get an artist to do a graphic novel, this would be a really, really good character to loan out to an existing prospect, because Doug Ernst has his Soul Finders series, and they are supernatural mercenaries who work for the Catholic Church. They're demon hunters, basically, with superpowers. I could definitely see at least a meetup. Yeah, this is what we do when we're fans. We're like, yeah, can you imagine a Green Lantern and Spider-Man were both fighting, this thing here, which is a paper that I wrote in 5th grade.
I have these conversations with my friends as well, where somebody was just going, so imagine if Batman and Spider-Man swapped places for a year in their respective cities. It's like, okay, well, this would line up because oh, look, Spider-Man versus Bane, he goes up against Rhino all the time, and it just spirals from there. I actually have a fellow author who has already suggested to me a crossover between Saint Tommy and her world, which is Nephilim as space aliens, basically. And
I never see crossovers in fiction. And when I say that, I'm talking about prose fiction. I never see crossovers. You never pick up the novel that says, hey, we're bringing these two characters together for one big adventure that you can read. It's always television or comics. It's a visual thing. You like to see them together on the screen. But yeah, we love to see these meetings between characters we love. I talk about the Destroyer series that I'm on. The way I got into that was they had a fan anthology call, and I said, well, wouldn't it be neat if? And I had this story that I submitted, which was Remo Williams and Batman, which it was totally de-trademarkified. I mean, it was the car, the commissioner of the city, the signal, just this guy who dresses like Dracula to fight crime. He's a billionaire.
Rub the serial numbers off just a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. And it worked. They bought the story for the anthology. They bought it by giving me a copy of the anthology, and then they called me up and said, we thought you really had the voice down for the characters here. Would you like to take over the series for a while? I'm like, yeah, of course I would.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where you don't say no. Period.
Absolutely not. Now, but given that situation, this is a long-running franchise that was started by Warren Murphy and Richard Sapir, and along the way, they kind of got tired of writing the books, but they didn't get tired of collecting the checks. So, what happens in a situation like that is you start getting ghostwriters to take over series, which begs the question: why have your series end if you can just say, okay, I'm going to Tom Clancy this sucker and let somebody else do some stuff for a while I focus on something else?
Well, in my case, part of it is they're my toys, and nobody else gets to play with them. But, no, I have not had anyone come to me and go, hi, would you like to be James Patterson while somebody else writes the book? It's like, there might be a few people I can think of off the top of my head where it's like, yeah, sure, go right ahead. But writers, we're a very busy bunch. And most of the people I know are busy trying to just get their own IPs out.
Yeah, start writing me some James Patterson checks, and then I'll start being James Patterson.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Although it is nice to know that James Patterson did not come up with his writing model.
No, he did not. Well, all right, so we've reached the top of the hour here. It's been a good conversation about two different franchises. Both of them sound interesting, and what I have done to make it easy for folks to find them all, rather than point you to one book like you to do like this one. I didn't just point you to one book. I have the link down below that takes you directly to Declan's author page on Amazon. It's the very first link you hit, and then you can see all the books in one little convenient spot. Just click, add to cart, click, add to cart, click, add to cart. You know the drill. You've been to Amazon before. For whatever legal reason, I have to say that the link that we have provided is a Critical Blast affiliate link. Because apparently, Declan, there are people who will send other people to Amazon for free, just out of the goodness of their heart. They'll say, here's a link to Amazon. Go check this thing out.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Why not? I mean, it doesn't take anything away from the authors or the creators. It's taking it out of Amazon's pocket. Their pockets are deep. They are paying you to, send somebody to them. So it's their advertising budget. They've got the money set aside for you. Take it. But get out there and check out the St. Tommy books. St. Tommy, I guess the full title is the St. Tommy NYPD books, to get the full effect. And of course, the Honored Stake. Now, is that the name of the first book, or is that the name of the series?
Honored Stake is book one. The title, whatever. The series is called Love at First Bite. Yes, for those of you who are curious, I did see that movie from the 70s. It was funny. I think I still have a copy somewhere if I can dig it up. But
yeah, what was that? George
Hamilton.
George Hamilton, yeah. The most tan vampire you'll ever see.
Pretty much. Although, what the heck's his name? Frank Langella was close. Apparently, he was pitched Dracula when he was tanning in Acapulco. You know what I mean? Thank you.
Al Capono, yeah, of course.
Al Capono, yeah. Welcome to Chicago.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being on the show, Declan, and it's been a pleasure talking about your books. Everyone in the chat, we appreciate you being here, all the interaction. And if you're watching this on the replay, like I said, hit the link down below. Go check out some of these books. The books actually exist that don't have pictures in them, folks. And, some of them can be pretty darn entertaining. So with that, we're going to check out. And Declan, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.